morning, everybody. A little bit. Happy Saturday. I hope we are having an awesome weekend. Um, yeah, nothing exciting has happened yet. Although, when I went to get breakfast, one of the folks was like, Tim told me that you do quilting. Can I see some of your stuff? So I had to pull out my phone, share some quilting adventures. Oops, 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 oops. There we go. And yeah, that was fun because I love sharing my quilty creations. Always so much fun. And yeah, so she said that she crochets and she's been looking into quilting but doesn't know where to start. And I was like, well, here's a quilt shop that has a intro class, and here's another quilt shop that has a similar intro class. Oh lordy, I forgot that on this side. Yeah, I got a little zits coming on. Whoops, it happens. It's tough being, in my teens and getting zits. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I think I got somebody else onto quilting. We will see. But yeah, it's always fun to share. So far in the chat, we have a couple folks. We have my friend Steven from Bland Designs and the Idiot Quilter. He says he will be video bombing me at some point. Technically, I would be video bombing them because uh, video bombing is like when you show up unexpectedly, and like he's not technically showing up with video unexpectedly here. So yeah, it's works. It's weird English language. We also have my friend Candace who's here. Hi, Candace, and Joydy and Jacqueline. Good morning, and good morning to Charlotte. We got a handful of folks here. Uh, I know a lot of folks are sitting over at Steven's pop-up soda, and usually they come in and watch the replay because it's just fun to have something on in the background. Good morning, Ingrid, who has changed her name yet again. I like how you're trying to figure out what you want to be. That's the fun part about YouTube is you can tweak a little bit here and there and finally get your personality right. So, as the thumbnail says, I am working on some of my dragon fruit homework today because I am so far behind. I have finally this morning completed one quarter of one of the months, which was this block. This is month 3. So I had gotten these pieces done, on the live that we did on Stephanie's channel last month. But there were some log cabins that I hadn't done as part of the live. There's a lot of seams in these log cabins, specifically, like 12 because there's 13 pieces. So I procrastinated, and I'm like, it's time to stop procrastinating. So I got these fabrics cut, and my hope is to get at least the log cabins done during my live. If I don't, or if I complete those, then try to get another full 12-inch block or two done. And if I can get those done, then that gets me that much closer to completing the homework that I have for dragon fruit. I have a couple blocks, a couple of the 4-inch blocks from month 2 and 1 that I haven't completed, much less putting all of those blocks together. So That's probably what I'm going to work on a little bit when I get onto Steven Sode. But the first thing I'm going to work on when I get on Steven Sode is the last borders on my sister's graduation quilt. I've been procrastinating a lot with that. And yeah, so I've got to get the top and bottom borders on. And I got to figure out how to do the binding, or not binding, backing, because it's a pieced backing and in a shape I've not done before. So I will have to research that this weekend. So let's see. Stephen was kind enough to share the link to his pop-up Sode, which I will be, like I said, I'll be joining after that. And Sean, the guy who sews, has popped in for a few minutes. He was sewing some cotton cuts stuff up this morning on his channel. I caught him for a handful of minutes before I had to, get Riley outside and get my day started. If I change over to this, there we go. Excuse me. So, trying to get, I have my pile of fabrics and they are already in order, so I don't have to think. All I know is this was piece 1, underneath it is piece 2, underneath that is piece 3, all the way down. And there's 3 of these in this pile because I have 3 blocks to make. And when I do foundation paper piecing, I use Elmer's Blue Dots, the blue one. There is a yellow one that is a tape runner instead of a dot runner. I haven't tried that yet, so I don't know if it works the same. I've been meaning to try it because I can't find the blue dots hardly anywhere anymore. For whatever reason, Elmer's has decided to do. So yeah, it's like, it'd be nice uh, if the tape works the same. So what I'm doing is I am centering my slightly larger piece face up and attaching it with the dot runner. So it shouldn't move, and it doesn't. And then I have pre-folded everything. So I'm folding back, and I'm going to use my ordinary ruler, line the 1/4 inch line up against the paper, and just trim a 1/4 inch away from the paper. And I wish I can do that on camera, but the little tiny cutting mat that I got in one of the boxes, I don't know where I put it. I moved it somewhere, and sometimes when you organize things and put things where they belong, forget where they belong. So now that I have a nice straight edge here between 1 and 2, I'm going to place these right sides together, lining up that straight edge that we know we have. Flip it. If you keep just enough pressure, you're not going to, or the fabrics won't come apart. And I have a laser line on my sewing machine, so I can line up, but there's other tools that you can use. You can use just your eyes. But I do a couple locking stitches. And the reason why I do the locking stitches is to keep them from coming apart when I have to pop the seams. And just sew. And I go sew a little bit before and a little bit past. And foundation paper piecing is having a thread cutter is really awesome. Ingrid says she thinks she settled on a name now. Ingrid was also cleaning carpets this morning. Need my carpets cleaned at some point. Of course, I'm trying to get rid of my carpets. I just haven't had quite enough motivation to do that. John says he's going to have to try the dots. The dots are awesome. I know a lot of people will use pinning or hold and pray. That's the way that some people do it. The dots just work really nice, just to keep just enough. And like here, with number one, it's a really tiny piece, but when you're doing larger pieces, I just put like 2 or 3 small strips of dots on there. To get to number 3, what I do is I just pop the couple stitches back so that I can get to the fold. You're not taking the stitches out, you're not ripping the stitches, you're just popping them out of the paper. And I'll show that again next time in the next seam. And I'm doing the same thing, trimming it to 1/4 of an inch past the paper. Then we can open up the paper, grab piece number 3. And like I said, this works with a traditional log cabin as well, making sure your pieces are in your order. That way you don't have to think as you're piecing your stuff together. And then it's a little too far away. But I'll do a couple locking stitches. And then sew to just past the line. And that's what makes your 1/4 inch seam that you have in your project. And I'm just pressing this open or outwards because you can't press these seams open. If you like to use the Acorn pressing pen, use it very lightly because you don't really want to get it to soak into the paper, because if it soaks into the paper, it'll make the paper just a little bit weaker, and you need this paper to last. So again, I am just popping the couple seams until I can get to the fold. Right now we are plenty above the fold, so trim it down. Line it up. Flip it and go to town. The measurements provided by Fat Quarter Shop, because this is a Fat Quarter Shop pattern, are, I'm just going to call them just a little bit larger than what you need. Something doesn't feel right. Oh, because I goofed. I don't know how I goofed, but I went to number 6 instead of number 5. Oops. But the measurements that Fat Quarter Shops gives for the pieces to cut, they are just barely big enough, or just barely bigger than the finished pieces. So you're welcome to cut like 1/4 of an inch bigger than what they suggest. And I'm only going to try to rip where there's fabric. When you stop paying attention, you make a goof. Not a big goof. Okay. So I should have did number 5, which means I need to pop number 5. And trim number 5. If I remembered that Sesame Street song, I wouldn't be in here with this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I know that's going to be stuck in some people's heads for the rest of the day. Sorry, not sorry. Usually it's the first couple seams that you have that risk of oopsing. Okay. I'm supposed to be on 4, not 5. I went super wrong. I must not have had enough, caffeine this morning. I went to 6 thinking I was supposed to be at 5 and I was supposed to be at 4. Okay. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Glad I didn't sew that seam. Okay. One trick that I have been taught, if you have to rip your paper or rip your seam out like I did, magic tape, Scotch magic tape. If you put it over the paper, it'll help keep everything together when you have to sew it. Okay. Now this is right. I can press it out. And then I need to pop this seam's for 5, but I was able to line up for 5. So I'm not going to recut or retrim. I'm just going to leave it as it is and put number 5 on now. Ingrid says, oops. Linda's Trendy Threads says, hello all, watching while I'm working in the sewing room. Well, hi, Linda. I hope you are having an awesome day. And I forgot to do my start stop on that seam because I'm out of my rhythm. Good morning, Jen. So this one, number 6, I forgot to pop. But the good thing is I'm mostly okay with. But I'm still going to pull it back. Because this one is a little higher, so I'm still going to trim it. If I had lined it up a little bit better, I wouldn't be retrimming. And it gets easier once you get past number 4, because then you know that you're always on the seam that has 2, or you're on the side that has 2 seams after you cross number 4. And that makes things significantly easier. Like I said, normally would use magic tape over this seam that I had to rip, but I'm going to live on the wild side because this is a very central seam, and it shouldn't have any issues. Linda says, it's always a great day when she is in the sewing room. Ain't that the case? Okay. And then now I'm going to pop the two seams because, like I said, at this point it's easy to remember two seams are being popped. Like I said, I'm not popping the threads away from the fabric. I'm just popping the sewing away from the paper so that I can cut that 1/4 inch. And a lot of people think foundation paper piecing is complicated, difficult. It really isn't because you're still doing the same rules as regular piecing. You're always putting right sides together. The only difficult part is you have to flip everything upside down so you don't see the fabric. So you have to do a lot of trusting yourself. But once you get that trust with yourself working and you're able to feel things, the foundations are a lot easier to work with. And then the complicated part is if you're getting weird shapes. And the great thing about this project is there's no weird shape. I'm not really. Good morning, Mona did what? How are you today? Next seams to pop are for number 8. And like I said, I don't have to really remember numbers anymore because there's only one side that has 2 seams to pop. And that's right here. Because this only has 1 seam, and this only has 1 seam. This way has zero seams to pop. So there's only one way to go in that direction. So with log cabins being paper pieced, and even traditional pieced, because I was taught when I was traditionally piecing a log cabin to always do it on the side that has 2 seams. Always add your next piece to the side that has 2 seams. But obviously, you know, the first 3, the first 4, you're not dealing with 2 seams yet. And I'm just running a locking stitch just to help keep the seams from, or from the thread from coming apart. This project is called Dragon Fruit, and it's a block of the month from Fat Quarter Shop. Unfortunately, I don't think they have any more reservations for the block of the month yet. Or anymore, yeah, yet, anymore. But most block of the months, they release their patterns when the program is over. And this is a 9-month block of the month. Here's the book. So my months 1 and 2 were these squares right here. 3 was this one, and then 4 is going to be this one, and 4 is what we are sewing up this afternoon over on my friend Stephanie Stitch's channel. And like I said, if you cut everything the exact sizes that the Fat Quarter Shop suggests, these 2 sides should line up. I cut mine a little bit bigger, so that's why they don't line up. matter, as long as you are at least the size you need. Because the other thing with foundation paper piecing is as long as it's a little bit bigger, you're going to trim it down no matter what. Sean says he is just slow at FPP. Everybody is, well, okay. Shannon is fast. She is like an expert. But most people I know are slow at FPP, Sean. And it's mostly because you're doing a cut, a trim, or you're having to do a trim with every seam that you do. And if you're doing traditional piecing, you're not doing that extra trim. So it's the trim that slows you down. Now, if you're using your specialty rulers like the log cabin ruler or something like that, then you're probably going to be about the same speed as foundation paper piecing, except the additional step with foundation paper piecing of ripping the paper out at the end. There's many, many ways to get to the end result of a quilt block. Almost done with this block. Again, popping the stitches back. They make add a quarter rulers, which some people love. That does the same thing, but it has a little bit of a lip on there to help you line up the 1/4 inch with your ruler just a tad faster. They also have add an 1/8, which is the same thing as an add a quarter, except it's an 1/8 inch increment for smaller pieces. And then in this case, I am going off of the edge, and I'm going to lock it closer to the edge of the paper. As long as I go past the seam line, because there's a do not trim on this line and do trim on this line. As long as you are outside the trim line, you don't necessarily have to lock that stitch. But it keeps that rhythm in your head as to what you need to do. And then these last two pieces I've cut much larger because it was going to be waste either way. And I figure, why not just let it be waste in my block than waste in the pre-cut? Because that just meant one fewer slice I had to do. Number 13. And like I said, because I had everything in a pile, this went faster than if I was trying to do this any other way. And number 13 just goes all the way across. So this is the untrimmed block. And on the back with these pieces, they have, like I said, they have a line that says, do not cut on this line, because that's your final sewing line. And a line that says, do cut on this line, where it just says trim and do not trim. So I'm going to quickly trim this block. So that you can have an idea of what it actually looks like. I don't suggest trimming your blocks until you are ready to put them into another block. Just because it may like start to fray a little bit. But this is the finished block. And I have some other untrimmed blocks that I will attach it to later, but we'll just do another one. So here is the paper, and I do recommend before you're sewing anything to fold all of the lines. And if you're good, you can just fold them on your own. Or what I like to do is take one of these mailers that we've gotten in the past and just do a quick line up, fold, and use it to crease. Line up, fold, use it to crease. So that's an easy way to get your papers done. Again, you're not going to work on the page slice with the side with all of the letters and numbers. You're going to be working on the back. Hello, Julie. How are you today? And then, like I said, I use glue dots, and I'm just going to put a few dots over number 1. Center my piece, and again, this is if you cut your pieces just a little bit bigger than what Fat Quarter Shop suggests, you have a little bit more to line up. Make sure you're careful and find the seam between 1 and 2. This is for past Russ. Slice it, line up your piece. Again, right sides together, always right sides together. Julie is catching up on dragon fruit also. I think you are closer to caught up than I was, Julie. And again, when you open it up, you have a perfectly straight seam. Okay, I'm making sure I'm going to 3. And if you do that locking stitch, it just helps prevent the fabric or the stitches from coming undone when you're popping away from the paper. And this is how much I cut off of that seam. I have asked myself in the past, can I just not trim? And the answer is no, you can't just not trim, because that will just compound and compound and compound and compound. And then at some point, you're not going to be able to have things lined up. And then you're going to have more bulk in your block. And yeah, so I did try it, and I found myself running short after a few blocks or a few rounds. Ingrid says she is behind as well, but still loving the pattern. It is a gorgeous pattern. I mean, I'm a sucker for Tulip Pink as it is. And these are her basics. But what they've been able to do with lining up her basics with a pattern has been great. So popping the seams to number 4. And this is the last difficult one, because after this we'll have 2 seams to line up. Also up to seam 4, all the sizes look alike. And then now we're back to where it's easy. I see that there are 2 seams here. So that's the side I'm going to pop away from the papers. And because everything is already pre-folded, I don't have to really think as I'm folding it. Line up and we go. I took a domestic machine quilting class a number of years ago, and they suggested a silicone pad for your workspace to help keep your quilt looser, because sometimes the plastic of your bed can be a little bit sticky. I can imagine that working wonders when it comes to foundation paper piece, because then you don't have to worry about like as you're traversing like this, there's a little bit of a bump here, and traversing back here, you don't have to risk it shifting. But like I'm showing, you don't need to have any of that if you just take it slow. And we're always sewing past the line by a few stitches, preferably about, an eighth to a quarter of an inch. That just helps make sure all of your stitches are locked in with other stitches, similar to traditional piecing. There are some people with the mindset that you just go straight to the line and stop on the line. I'm sure that works for them, but it's not how I was taught. And, when you're taught something and you find what you like about it, you're not often going to make changes because somebody else is like, well, I do it this way. And I'm like, good for you. Ingrid says she's heard that too. And she has a silicone mat, but never used it, and she never finishes anything. Yeah. For me, it's more of, I'd have to install it. Well, let me rephrase that. With my older setup, before, I got this stay home machine and a go away machine, it was a concern of, I'd have to take things apart and um, put things back together. And those silicone mats, it feels like they only would stick back together so many times before they stop sticking. Now with my setup, it's less of a risk of having to take things down and put it back together, but it's now more of a risk of, I come in here once a month and now clean out the gunk underneath my needle plate. So again, that is taking it apart and put it back together. And I would get tired of having to put it back together on all the time. And then the idea of just putting it back together when you're working on a project, it becomes work. So I'm just like, unless something comes up that says, it's this percent better and all that other stuff, Ingrid says just going a smidge past line helps lock in the stitches and avoid potential holes. Yep. And by a smidge, I do like an eighth to a quarter of an inch. And when I'm actually doing the seams, I have my stitch length at a 1.8 millimeter. The stitch length that you use, there's again a lot of variance. 1.8 tends to be the larger size because I guess most people suggest a 1.6 to a 1.8. I know people who go down to like a 1.0 or a 1.2. And the thing is, the smaller your stitch length, the more work it is to rip out if you make a mistake. So the mistake that I made earlier today, if I had a smaller stitch length, it would have been a lot more work to take out. And for me, I don't see much of a difference with the way my machine stitches. I got to be clear with that. Between the 1.8 and the 1.6. So I just do the 1.8. Like I said, I know some people do smaller, and it's because they don't want to risk seeing a thread when they're aggressively pressing. And I'm all in for them to do it that way because that's what works for them. There are no right or wrong answers when it comes to quilting. Mostly. There are some things that you shouldn't do. But like even the seam allowance, it's more of a suggestion, and you do the math and you want a larger or smaller seam allowance for your blocks, you are welcome to do that. It feels like that'd be more complicated, but you know, it's a you do you thing. There is also conversations on thinner thread using foundation paper piecing. There is a really nice, either 60 or 80 weight that I had been using in the past, but my normal source for that thread closed down. I did find that that thread is now available somewhere else in the area because I went and I finally searched again yesterday. I just need to take a trip up to Atlanta sewing at some point. As Candace is now perked up and said, Atlanta sewing, I'm in. Two more seams with this block. These foundation papers were made and supplied by Fat Quarter Shop. So they are available for purchase if you want to do blocks similar to this. Or the same blocks. I mean, you can dissect some of this yourself. I don't recommend it. I recommend buying patterns. But you can easily, like if you have, what are these, 6-inch log cabin blocks? They do have the 6-inch log cabin paper from Fat Quarter Shop. They have 4-inch papers because that's in our month 1 and 2. And they also have 12-inch papers because that's in future months. And yeah, so they do have several paper sizes. And if you have EQ8, also known as Electric Quilt 8, or 7, or whatever version you have Electric Quilt, I think you could even design your own papers for that. But you're limited to the size of the printer that you have. Kathy asked, Deco Bob 80 weight? I think it was a 60 weight that I was using. I've already forgotten what the brand is because yesterday I was looking for a very specific photo in my photo history on, I would say my phone, but my photos get backed up to the cloud. So I was looking up on Google Photos. And as I was scrolling through pictures, I saw the end of the bobbin that I had taken a picture of, and I was like, I need to research this. Because when I researched it, when I ran out of bobbin, I didn't really find any places, especially online. And I know it's not Deco Bob, but Deco Bob does have really great 80 weight. I think I have some of that sitting in one of my shopping carts, or if it's not in my shopping cart still, I have bought it. But I think it was a 60 weight that I was looking at. For this stuff, I am just using standard Aurifil 50 weight. So you can still use the standard 50 weight that you use for piecing. I'm sure that there's a little bit more seam in the fold. I don't know how many microns that is. But I have the next block done. So that's 3 of the 4 from month 4 that I have done. I have one more to do for month 3. I got to finish getting the stuff cut out for month 4, which is this afternoon on Stephanie Stitch's channel at 5 o'clock. You are welcome to join us. It's always a blast. And I still got to finish a little bit from months 1 and 2. But like I said, I am going to join my friend Steven Sode on Zoom. Let me see if I can get that link. Copy? Yes. I have pasted the link to Steven Sode in the chat. So you are welcome to join us. It's on Zoom. It's private. It is not published on YouTube. But yeah, it's just a wonderful group of people to hang out with and sew with while you are, working on stuff. Sometimes it gets quiet. Sometimes everybody is just chit-chatting about things. Sometimes we enable each other. But it's always a fun day. So like I said, I am going to go join that for a little while and hopefully get my sister's quilt finished, the top, and start figuring out how to do the back. Because every other quilt that I have done in the past, it was just one seam down the center. And this one has the seam and then 2 sides because it's a large queen. So, although I feel like it is smaller than. Oh, wait. That one wasn't pieced. That's why. Oh, so yeah. I just need to remember if I'm doing queen size quilt that I need to put some of the fabrics. They don't have one. and I'm not going to go buy more fabric for this because it's already expensive. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. And again, join us on Stephen Sode. Expect my vlog on Wednesday. And for anybody on my mailing list, expect an email tomorrow about, an upcoming event that will be announced later this week.